Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes, and I want to say another nice job on a very complicated meeting.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
well done.
Thank you.
Mrs. Holland?
Yes.
Chairman Williford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item 3, amended final site and landscape plan application, Stanley Memorial Library, 507 7th Street, followed by Prince George's County Office of Central Services. Looking at each other.
No, he was backing up.
No, I'm the PowerPoint operator.
Multitasking.
What is before you tonight is an amended site and landscape plan titled Laurel Library.
Can you hear? They can't hear you, Jack.
The Laurel Branch Library Site and Landscape Plan prepared by ADTEK Engineers. The applicant is seeking approval for an amended final site and landscape plan for a new 31,000 square foot library, 140 space parking lot, upgraded utilities, stormwater, and upgrading of the Emancipation Community Park, which will include a splash pad, an amphitheater, a pavilion, a playground, and a basketball court. There has been a library committee that has been meeting since October of last year on these plans. The engineer of record is here if you have any questions, but I'll go over the analysis. The area is in a flood hazard zone C, which is an area of minimal flooding. The existing land use is a library with surface parking and a community park. The applicant has requested variances from the following Unified Land Development Code requirements. The 75 side yard setback for public utilities, public facilities, a 50-yard setback for the play area, a 20-yard setback for parking area, and 5% maximum building coverage for the property in a PI, which this is. The majority of the property is in PI, which is a public institution, and the 90% green space coverage in a PI. They've also requested a community design proposal of 135 standard 5 handicap parking spaces, whereas the code requires 186 standard and 5 handicap spaces. And the design also includes the upgrading of the park, which is being done in concert with the City of Laurel Parks and Recreation Department. And this is an upgrade with those items that I previously stated. Public Works has reviewed the site plan. They had requested 5 items on the final site plan. ADA ramps to be consistent, parking lot circulation, 2-way circulation recommended for the parking lot, lighting, photometric study be provided, and that the pavement meet the Prince George's County standards for paving along 7th Street. It is recommended that the Planning Commission, 1, waive the following specification requirements in accordance with Section 20-2.2, plans, plats, and information to accompany application for permits of the ULDC because of site-specific considerations. 75-foot setback yard, 50-foot yard setback, 50-foot yard setback for the play area, for the parking area, 50 for the play area, 5% maximum building coverage for the property, 90% coverage of the property, and the parking requirement. It's also recommended that it be approved with the 5 comments from the Public Works Department, and those are delineated beneath the recommendation. This concludes the presentation of staff. If you have any questions of the engineer on site specifics, they are here.
Does anyone from the staff have questions from the commission?
I've got one question on lighting. I don't know who best to ask it.
Ask Jack to start with.
You want me to wait and ask the engineering team, or ask you, Jeff?
Lighting?
Wait and ask them?
Yes.
Okay, I'll hold off. Thank you.
I have a simple one. What is the splash pad?
It's an interactive spray pad that kids run across and it sprays water. I believe.
Go ahead. We'll get definitive answers later. Go ahead.
I had a question, specifically, as I was looking at the site plan, it looks like it's going to one legal tract, one legal parcel, as opposed to
Yes.
separated from the Emancipation Park was separate from it originally. And now, as one tract, I guess I wanted to be clear, at least that's from my review, and maybe I'm misreading it in my review, but the question that came to my mind was, how was the neighborhood still going to be able to benefit from the park? I mean, I know that it's easy access, and the neighborhood has always traditionally and historically utilized that area. But with it being one legal track, I understand that that now is going to be owned by the county, if I'm not mistaken. And there's going to be some type of sharing agreement or something with respect to the park. I just want clarification on.
Ms. Mills.
The county will continue to own its parcel, and the city will continue to own its parcel. We will develop a lease agreement that we're working on now, where we will give a 50-year lease to the county to use the city property.
Oh, okay, so I guess I need to take a closer look at that, because I thought it was now going to be one legal tract.
No, we're going to do, right now the plan is to have a lease agreement. And as far as the community events that are held there, we believe with the park improvements that the use of that area is going to be greatly enhanced. There'll be additional parking along the east side of the park that we will be able to use for Emancipation Day celebration, as well as the basketball courts are going to be moved to closer to the corner of Laurel Avenue and 8th Street, so they have a greater tie-in to McCullough Field. And there's parking available at McCullough Field that will be able to be shared for the use there. I think the applicant may explain in greater detail, but we think it's going to be a great amenity to the city and will really enhance the use of that park. There's plans for an amphitheater, and St. Mark's and other churches have used the park for a chorus presentation, and we think that amphitheater will enhance that use as well.
Okay, and then I guess the second question I had is, under that agreement, does the city residents who historically lived in the community, do they get first dibs on the use of that park, or is the sharing agreement include that the library and its occupants have special times or rights to that area over the city residents? I just want a little bit of clarification, and maybe that'll be handled in the presentation, but those were the questions that came to mind when I reviewed.
On the use of the park, we intend to work with the library. The events that are tied to the library, you know, they're not going to say, oh, hey, we're going to have an event this afternoon. We anticipate a continued working relationship for the sharing of those amenities, and they'll be scheduled just like the other parks and pavilions throughout the city are scheduled through Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Any other staff questions?
One other question. Is the property within the historic district?
No.
Kind of close, right on the line, sort of? Not even close?
Laurel Avenue.
What was behind that? Your question was for clarification. Strictly for clarification?
Yes, yes.
Any other questions? President Smalls?
No, Mr. Chairman, I sit as a member of the library committee, so I'm very familiar with this project.
Okay. Okay. No more questions from the commission? I have Antonio Ribello. Hello, and how are you?
Good, how are you? Good evening.
Good, thank you. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us what you're going to tell us.
Good evening. My name is Antonio Ribello. I'm an architect with Grimm & Parker Architects. We're honored to be for this project. Been a great process. I am accompanied tonight here by the project manager, Agnes Panganiban, by the landscape architect, Mrs. Sharon Bradley, and by the civil engineer, Jeff Campbell. So we'll be honored to answer any questions you may have. I can give you a quick presentation of the project, so bring you up to speed where this is, and then I'm going to let Sharon talk about the landscape design and about the park and the outside features of the design. We brought these boards, but perhaps I'm going to lower them, and we can use the PowerPoint that we sent earlier, and then we can put these boards back up. This is a proposed rendering of the exterior of the library as seen from the parking lot. If we can go forward. Okay, so basically the location of the library will be where the current library is, which is right there between 7th and 8th Streets and on Talbot Avenue. The property now is roughly about 5 acres, and north is up on this picture here, in this Google picture. And that's important for us because of the solar orientation that affects the building design and how we want to maximize that for efficiency and so forth. Also, the site is close to this recreation center here, where then it became sort of obvious after some design trial and error that we could locate some of the amenities that the site currently has to move them up closer to this recreation center here. Can go next. So one thing we did was obviously look at the community, at the historic significance of the site, at the materials, at the history, and what we have here that we can celebrate and bring on to the design of this library and to its grounds. Obviously, one important aspect is Emancipation Park, which is part of this project, and we want to celebrate that and make that even a better and a more attractive amenity to the community, be something to be proud of. So if we can go the next one. So basically this is a close-up of the site. These lines here, the red line means the property line, and the other lines mean the setback lines. There's an 18-foot setback line, which is the yellow, and about a 15-foot setback for parking. The site, like I said earlier, is between 7th Street and 8th Streets and Route 198. We flipped the site to the left so it could fit better in this picture. So north now is on the left side. As you can see, there is a geometry here with this road that creates kind of like a triangle area. And there's this kind of sawtooth property line here because of these existing properties that are there. So that was what was given to us. And with that, we start designing the site and placing the building in order to maximize the site and the building. If we can go to the next picture. So going north, west on 198, you see that the library is very prominent. The site is very prominent. That's a good thing. That's something you want. You don't want to bury the building and put a parking lot in front. You actually want to show the building to attract people to come visit your community, or everyone to come to this library. So we nowadays in library design, we want to bring them to the forefront, to the road. Next slide, please. So again, this view also from 7th Street and 198, the corner. Next one. And from 8th Street and 198. You see, very visible. There's several trees there currently that some we are hoping to preserve. Sharon will talk about that a little bit. and some we have to take out, but we will replant. Next slide. Emancipation Park. We will renovate the whole park. We will bring back the amenities like the basketball court and the playground, which unfortunately was vandalized recently. That's going to be brought in actually sooner than later because of that need. So here's pictures of these amenities as they are now there. Next slide. So another view, we study almost ad nauseum about what the sun does, the pattern of the sun, what that's going to mean on the design of the building, the paths for cars, paths for people, and we try to incorporate that into the design to maximize that. Next slide. So this is the current park here, approximately about this shape. There's like a little grove of trees here right now. And the library building is this yellow building here that's existing. The new building is going to be a 31,000 square foot building, which is a one-story building, which is great for people with disabilities, for elderly, for children. So it's a very friendly building. It's all at one level. And the building is laid out in such fashion that it faces 198. So you see the facade that actually faces that road is parallel to that road. And it also faces 8th Street here. And its entrance actually is not an introverted, quote unquote, speak entrance like the current library, but is actually facing 7th Street in the corner. So it's very visible as you approach this building. The new park then, in order to make space for parking and all that, the new park then is stretched all the way down, all the way to this area here, which is closer to the rec center. And it's very close to the existing area, as you can see by comparing these two green spaces, very close to the existing area of the existing park. Next slide. Okay, right now I'm going to stop speaking. I'm going to give it to Sharon. She's the landscape architect. She will tell you all about the landscaping features.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Bradley with Bradley Site Design from Washington, D.C. Our offices used to be over Red Hot and Blue right there on Main Street. We enjoyed our time there. And my son went to St. Mary of the Mill, so very familiar with Laurel, and we're very excited to be back in the neighborhood and working on this project. So for our site design, we had several main goals that really guided our design decisions. We really wanted to honor the history of the site, the Oak Grove history, Emancipation Park, the Emancipation Day festivities and parades, and the cotton mill history. So the materials and the layout of the park and the library site really tried to pick up some of the elements of that history. Secondly, we want to provide a fitting, appropriately scaled site for the library itself so that it looks like it belongs in its setting. So the scale of the landscaping and the hardscaping is in keeping with the scale of the building, and you'll see some of the materials and the architectural motifs repeated in the site, so it's very cohesive. We also wanted to create a very strong indoor-outdoor relationship so that the site can be appreciated from inside looking out as well as when you're out in the site. We want the site to be just as educational as the building, so that when you're out in the site, it can be just as educationally enriching as the library building itself. And then finally, we want the site to be sustainable and not just greenwash, not just to say we did something sustainable, but in a very meaningful way. So as I go through this, you'll see that we made a number of decisions to make the site operate more efficiently and be more environmentally friendly. I'll point out a few of the layout features. As was mentioned earlier, we wanted to make sense. We wanted to have some common sense in addition to having a beautiful setting. And it really did make sense to locate all of our recreational features down at this end of Emancipation Park so that there was that strong relationship to the recreational activities across the street. And that way you'll have a very strong set of facilities that relate well to each other. We wanted to provide a great setting for all those Emancipation Day festivities that go on, and we talk to people in the city about exactly what happens and what kind of space requirements they would have. So we didn't want to impede anything in this space so that you have that wide open space for those activities. We also heard that there are ceremonies and things like that, and these choral music events. So this amphitheater can accommodate those. It seats approximately 150, so we didn't want it to be overscaled, but we did want it to be large enough to be a good setting for those annual events. And we'd like to think that this would prompt whole new traditions, because now that the setting is here, it might give rise to new city traditions. The amphitheater is set into a hillside that we created on this very flat site, and that serves to screen the service area over here. So we're trying to accomplish two things at once. Now, in order that this area won't be a dead space when it's not a lively event day, we wanted to draw the play activity down to this end as well, activate the entire space, and that's what gave rise to the idea of the water jets. And that, of course, will be totally in the city's control as to when those are running and when it's just an open plaza. But we felt that that would activate this entire recreation space and draw kids down to this end as well. We want positive activities to be occurring in this space, and the way we can make that happen is to provide opportunities for positive things to happen. Up here, you'll notice that some of those strong diagonal lines of the building are repeated in the landscape with a main plaza, a small water feature. These are bioretention areas that will handle our stormwater here and here in a very colorful and beautiful way with native plantings that have year-round interest. The plantings will also attract wildlife like butterflies, birds, and so you'll see a lot more of that kind of activity happening out here. The paving in the parking lot is pervious, so that is another sustainable measure for the handling of the stormwater, and it's also more attractive than just plain asphalt. I think, Ed, if you advance, we'll see. These are some of the plantings that we're recommending. All of the ones that you're seeing here are native, and as you can see, a number of seasons are represented here. So we'll have very strong fall color, spring flowering. Some of our shrubs in the bioretention areas have bright red stems, so that in wintertime, you'll see that in the wintertime, so that at a time when it's usually kind of bleak, there'll actually be color in the landscape. And then plants like this attract butterflies. Here are some of the precedent images we used to suggest how the amphitheater, the play mound down near the play the equipment, and our splash park, we'd like to play with fun lighting ideas, because we want it to not only be a year-round interest park, but also around the clock. If there are special events, we might create a more vibrant space with some interesting lighting. And this is our play feature. So we're going to preserve as many of the existing trees as possible. We'll tag them by hand. We'll evaluate their condition and their size, and we'll save the best ones. And then we'll selectively remove the rest for the basketball court, and here's the new site for the playground. We're recommending a geoturf product for the safety surface. It looks like grass. It's got a longer blade than some of the artificial turf you've seen, so it looks a lot more natural. And the fill is a coconut fiber, so it doesn't heat up like some of the artificial fields that you've heard about. It stays at the ambient temperature. It's soft, and it's very environmentally friendly. Here's the park itself, and as you can see, it's fun. It's got a lot of different activities incorporated into one system. So these are very innovative, and we've seen these in a number of places in Maryland and DC, and they're extremely popular. Next. Here, this is it's interesting, the pervious pavers in the parking lot. It's called Pave Drain. It's a very interesting system that's laid in mats. It was locally conceived and invented, and it's locally distributed. So we're also supporting local businesses. And as you can see, a number of sustainable measures that we're using here on the site. Next. This is another view of the site, gives you another angle of the library. This is 198 and 7th Street, and so we have this very, an entrance that really addresses this busy corner. So it really does not turn its back on the main areas of traffic like the current library does. And the other angle, here's 8th Street and 198, and here's the park stretching across here. These trees are no longer there. We opened that up. And the parking lot, as you can see, we've planted a lot of trees in the parking lot that'll reduce the heat island effect of the paving, and it will minimize the effect of all those cars in there. So even though we're really increasing the amount of parking, it won't look overbearing on the site. And we're into the interiors. Did you want to go?
Thank you. All right. The library is laid out very simply by zones. Route 198 basically has this big. Can we go back just one slide? By volumes. Actually, let's go back a little bit more. One more. There. So that's the big reading room. That's a big space. Those are the meeting areas. That's like a spine that is circulation. As you come in the library, you go all the way to the end. If we keep, you go forward one slide. Yep. Another meeting room. This is the teen area. And the spine is also aligned with the church. So that there's kind of like a homage to that building, which is an important building in the community. And as it turns towards H Street, the more quiet area, and towards the park, this becomes the children's area. So if we go forward one more. So that actually is the children's area. And then the staff and the mechanical stuff is just basically facing the parking lot. So if we go forward one more. So one would come in, and this yellow area is the public area where there are meeting rooms. And there's a cafe, which is a stretch of the word. Is really like where there's vending machines, and there's some tables here. There's restrooms and 2 smaller meeting rooms. And then here's a computer lab right here. And then there's another pair of doors, and you would come in, and you would be on the library itself. So right here are the circulation desk, the self-checkout, and the information desk. The information desk straddles the children and the adult area, and also as supervision to the teen area, which is located at the end here. So there's visibility from all this to the librarians and to the people working in the library. And behind here is a staff area of the building. So basically that's it. These are study rooms that are here. This is a quiet study room. And that's the children's area. We have a whole motif for the children's area. It's going to be called, it has a theme. It's the Discovery Island theme, and there's going to be really fun things in there, including, hopefully, a dinosaur, which alludes to the Laurel dinosaur archaeological digs that happened here. So we're going to bring that into that room. It's going to be located right there. We're going to have themes like a volcano and very interesting things there. We can go forward one more. These are the sustainable features that we're using in the building. You alluded to a few earlier. I don't think we need to go over all of these unless you have questions. But basically, if we go one more slide, and that's our presentation. If you have any questions.
Sounds like a lot of study. Having been here before, the history, it seems like you've done a lot of work to make this
Thank you,
something
sir.
special.
Thank you. I forgot to say that we brought some of the material board that we are using. We looked at the city, and we saw the stone as being part of the tradition of the city. So we said that needs to go back into this building, and so we brought the actual sample we're using there, and the other samples of the materials that you saw in those renderings here as well.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple of comments and questions. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I had gone to a couple of the community meetings, and this is going to be just a great project for the city. I also want to acknowledge, I see some of the citizen members here. Mr. Eric Hoagland from the Parks and Rec Committee, I know has been part of the library committee, sitting in the back there hiding. And there's probably some others here from the Citizens Committee. And I know Mr. Smalls, he won't take credit, but, you know, Fred's been pushing the green effects, you know, the green part of this design personally, and I think it's really turned out well. I think it's a great mix of things. It's pretty exciting. I mean, it's going to be a great building, and I'm anxious to see it come out of the ground. I do have one very minor question on the lighting, parking lot lighting. And so over there next to where the Shambaris live, I just want to understand if I live there, so they're in the house next to the parking lot on 7th Street. I just want to make sure on the lighting there that, they're the same side of the street.
Oh,
The most adjacent property, yeah. I just want to make sure that we do everything we can to shield them from the lighting of the parking lot.
Yes, sir.
They're losing the house buffer.
Yes, sir.
Where that they enjoyed prior to this, which is fine, but I do want to make sure that we're conscious of however we can best shield the
Yes,
light.
sir.
And I don't know exactly. I tried to look.
One thing, if I may,
Go ahead.
if I may say, although we are not actually physically going for a lead certification on this project, we're designing this to a lead standard. And that means that some of the lighting should not go beyond the property line.
Okay.
So we're doing all the best, and we have photometric charts that we have done with our engineers that actually take these fixtures and put, you know, actual numbers on the site, and we have to provide enough lighting for safety for the cars and for people, but anything that goes beyond the property line has to be thrown back, cannot go and cause light pollution.
Yeah, I
to
think
the
we had that
neighbors.
in our ordinance, right, Jack?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So, you know, I appreciate that. And then to the water feature, you know, I've been a big fan of the one in Silver Spring there along, there's a great Thai restaurant there in Silver Spring that I go to all the time upstairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that water feature, I mean, on a summer night, that place is packed with kids. I think I don't understand what it's going to take to maintain it for the Parks and Recs folks. So and lighting and all the other things. But if we could pull that off and offer that, I just think it would be just a wonderful addition to both that amphitheater and for the kids in the area to be able to sit around there. My kids are gone now, but that would have been a fun place to go and take them, and I think that would make the library very, very attractive. So I hope we can actually get that done. I think it would be a great amenity there, and I appreciate all the maintenance issues and headaches that come with that. But that's all I got. Thank you again, and I want to thank publicly everybody that was part of the Citizen Committee and the Library Committee. At some point, I'd like somebody to address the public art part of this. I don't quite understand how to ask that question, but maybe Mr. Smalls can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And maybe, Jack, you may want to add something to that regarding the public art.
Hello, my name's Jack Sloan. I'm with the Office of Central Services. Prince George's County has an ordinance that states that for any public construction, 1% of the cost of the construction has to go towards public art. This is a $12 million building, so 1% does give us a fairly healthy budget. It's our plans to have a piece of public art both inside the building as well as in the park itself. There is a committee that will be soliciting proposals from artists. Those proposals will be reviewed and 3 selected, and those 3 successful artists will then produce a small rendering or model of what it is they plan on putting both in the building and in the park, and then a final selection will be made from there.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
Is the building only 1 story? I saw you showed, because the current one has a basement, I believe.
Correct. This one is 1 story, slab on grade.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the commission? from the public? Okay. Ready for your inputs?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the amended final site and landscape application for the Stanley Memorial Library at 507 7th Street, as filed by the County Office of Central Services. And I'd like to combine that with an action
Resolution?
on Resolution 1313-PC.
Second, and including the staff report with the recommendations.
Accept that as an amendment.
Second.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettman?
Aye.
Mr. Walford?
Yes.
Mrs. Holland?
Yes.
Chairman Williford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Very well done. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I have, no, I think these are all related to the library. Yes, they are. Wow, that was interesting. Okay, now we're going to go to item 7.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could just, it's
Sure
not
you
germane
can.
to this, but I just have a question for Mr. Smalls. Do we have an idea on the timeline?
Are we still timeline, we're still looking at fall 14?
Design should be done around October of this year, and then we'll go through the permitting process, but I'm sure it's going to be more efficient than the county's permitting process. And then
They'll hear you.
we'll get it and probably start very early spring. And then 13 months of construction.
It's going to be great. Thank you.
Looking forward to that. Okay, item 7, amended site and landscape plan application 701 Gorman Avenue, filed by Super Suds Management LLC. Robert.
Yes. This is a request to reuse the vacant 7-Eleven building at 71 Gorman, which is adjacent to 7th Street. What they'd like to do is use most of the building as it's existing, but change a few items on the site. They propose 36 machines, and they propose to add, there'll be a total of 19 parking spaces. They're going to use the existing parking spaces on the south side, and then on the north side, there's some existing asphalt. They want to expand the asphalt and then stripe it so that there's going to be additional parking on the north side for a total of 19. One major change is there's 2 curb cuts adjacent to 7th Street. What they want to do is close both of those, then open up a new curb cut further north on site, but it's going to be further away from Gorman Avenue.
Okay.
Another feature is right now on the north, there's no landscaping on the property except for some grassed area on the north. What they want to do is add 2 maple trees on the north and then 4 shrubs in the northeast corner. And then the last bit of improvement on the site, major improvement on the site, there's an existing fence line on the west side, 6 feet chain link, and what they want to do is add a security fence on the north side to cut off the cut-through pedestrian traffic from the 7-Eleven.
Okay.
The one difference between the staff and the developer's proposal is they would like to operate 24 hours initially when they first submitted the plans. Staff felt that the property is zoned community commercial, CC zone, and which is a less intense zone than the commercial general zone, which allows late night or all night businesses. Right now we have 2 houses to the east, a single family neighborhood to the east, and then we also have apartments to the south. We're worried about late night congregations in the parking lots. And so what we are proposing is to limit the hours of operation. In conclusion, staff is recommending granting the amended site and landscape plan with the following conditions. 1, stormwater management plans must be reviewed and approved by the Prince George's Department of Environmental Review. 2, exterior parking areas will be illuminated in accordance with Section 28.7 standards for design of the City of Laurel Unified Land Development Code. Site lighting will be directed towards the interior of the site, away from any adjacent residences or residential land uses. Third, laundromat shall operate in compliance with Chapter 9, Article 7, noise control of the City of Laurel Code. Fourth, no low-profile monument or freestanding sign is permitted on this site. Fifth, dumpster enclosure detail to be submitted for review by the Department of Community Planning and Business Services. And 6, hours of operation limited to 6 a.m. until 11 p.m.
Okay.
And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Commission questions? I have any questions from the commission first?
The only thing I would have is the hours, of course, is the biggest concern that I would have. 11 o'clock is certainly better than 24 hours, but if I lived over there, I'd prefer it to be 9 o'clock p.m. for a closing time. 11 o'clock, I don't know, it's with a couple of houses right there across the street, there's already concern for the hours, and then the concern of the police chief with the traffic and the pedestrians crossing that area and all of that. I think 9 o'clock is late enough for people out washing their clothes. You can start at 6 in the morning, it's 9 o'clock. I mean, I don't see why it has to be so late. 11 o'clock at night is kind of late for me.
I would only say, and I don't know, I know that for the years that the 7-Eleven was across the street from those apartments, that was 24 hours, I believe, wasn't that pretty much 24 hours for most of the years. When 7-Eleven first came out, I think it was from 7 to 11, that's what, but I'm not sure if we have any residents signed up to speak, because I guess one of the things that I would say is that many years ago, when I used to need a laundromat and not have one, it was the off hours that it was used because either working or different things like that. So I'd like to hear if we have any of the residents that have issues with the hours.
Okay. Any other comments from up here?
I think you noted 19 spaces. The actual plan attached is 18. And it talks about, so is it 19 or is it 18? I think it's 18.
I think, Monique, I think it's 18's required,
Okay.
but 19's provided.
Okay.
But
I was
I'll double check
trying
the
to count
site
them. I couldn't
plan.
find them, but okay, that's fine. And then the pedestrian crosswalk, when the 7-Eleven was there, has there been a crosswalk? Has there been a lot of, I'd like some more elaboration on what their concern, we know it's a high traffic area and corridor, but 7-Eleven was there. And they even had an entrance on, Gorman, which was, made it even more tricky. So just like to hear your thoughts on that whole crosswalk concern.
Are you referring to the police chief's concerns?
Yes, the police chief's concern about the crosswalk.
I think he was concerned about it generating pedestrian traffic. He's worried about the high speeds on Gorman, and so I think the police chief didn't want any land use that might cause a lot of pedestrian use. I think he would rather have a less intense, a land use that generates less pedestrian traffic. There is a crosswalk. I walked across it on Gorman with a light for pedestrians, but there's nothing across 7th Street. Yes.
Do we know if the apartments directly across have washer dryers there in those apartments? I'm not quite sure why anyone would think that this would be a higher pedestrian traffic than a 7-Eleven there if those apartments have washer dryers. I can't.
Our building inspector, we were all talking about it in the office, and he said that if he remembers correctly, all of the units in that building have in-unit washer and dryers. Yeah.
I thought so I'm not quite sure why anybody would believe that this would be a high pedestrian use. I would think people would be driving there if they're going to be carrying laundry.
Okay. Any other questions from up here? I have Monique Fleming.
Hi, good evening. I'm Monique Fleming. I'm one of the residents at 608 7th Street. I
Please
purchased
state
that
your name and address for the, there you go.
608 7th Street.
Is it on? One more time.
Let's make sure we get it on the record.
Hi, good
Gotta have
evening.
you for the post office, you know.
608 7th Street, Monique Fleming.
Thank you.
Everything I heard so far was some of the questions that I had, you know, concerning a laundromat being placed across the street from the residence. Now, I have my own, so this isn't the place that I'm going to be frequenting. But my concern is, I moved from Silver Spring, Montgomery County, and I know that area there with the 7-Eleven. I know the congestion of the traffic for people coming in, so I heard you were going to block off 2 of those and probably bring the traffic in from in the big parking area itself, the mall. I'm not sure how you're going to get traffic into that area, because I know that 7-Eleven was there, and although it was 24 hours, the residents were never across the street. So those 2 homes, mine and the other family next door. So our concern is, because right now the people that live in the resident across the street, they actually park in front of our homes on that street. There's no sign that says they can't park, but when people turn on that to come on 7th Street, that's an obstruction. And sometimes I'm reversing out of 608 and they block my view of traffic coming on that way. So when people go to this laundromat and they may not have, you know, access to those 19 spaces or 18 spaces, even though they have those white ridges in the road, they still park along the side. I've seen them park there, even if, you know, just to stop to text or stop to use the phone, they park on the side. And so the traffic comes off into the other lane. So I see a business on the corner as an obstruction, not only to traffic, but for the residents living there, you know, it impedes our sight when we reverse or even come on that end. Now, as for the hours, definitely not 11. 7 to 11, no. 9, I would even go to 7. Because even, I've moved there in June of last year, and I can tell you, the area is so peaceful and quiet right now. The traffic goes and the light, everything is running smooth on that corner. And I've seen it before, because coming from Silver Spring to go to, you know, the Laurel Mall or Walmart, anything on that end, every time it got to that 7-Eleven, it stopped in that one lane. I see it happening up on Route 1 with the gas stations every Thursday. Same thing. Once you have to stop the traffic to go into the establishment, that far left lane, you know, blocks up the traffic all the way up. So, you know, this is my first meeting here. You know, I like what I saw with the library, but again, with our laundromat, again, we're more concerned, again, with the vagrants on the lot. You know, the people that will frequent the establishment, possibly, you know, go behind the building. I don't know how it's going to be lit, secure. So questions like that I have concern with, because I have 2 young little boys, and, you know, I really don't want to have them looking out the bedroom window, seeing anything that I have to explain. So I have very good concerns, so I'm just trying to see how that will be addressed there tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I also have Ed Gibbs. Is that the name? Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Any other comments? Yes, please.
My name is Dean Packard. I represent the applicant, Super Suds. We are in concurrence with the conditions 1 through 5, and Mr. Bob Swartz, the applicant, is here to address the concerns of number 6 about the hours. And I do want to say that it's a relatively small facility being contained in the existing 7-Eleven building, which is not proposed to be expanded. And we are providing additional parking to accommodate the travelers that would be coming to the laundromat. And that would be, located in the front and rear of the building, and the lighting, it'll be lit so that there'll be no loitering and so forth in the parking lot. And like has been mentioned, we're blocking off the access, because one of the concerns from the staff and from the neighborhood as people were cutting through the 7-Eleven parking lot. And with the new arrangement where we're separating that and closing the entrances, that cut through and potential safety hazard will be eliminated. I'm here to address any technical questions.
Can you address the usage hours that raises the concerns about the later hours of opening?
Yes, Mr. Swartz, who is the applicant and future owner, is here to and can speak to address to that.
Okay. Please.
Hi, thanks. I'm Bob Schwartz. My company owns, we have 23 locations, and I can tell you from a customer service standpoint and a usage, in almost all cases, our customers want extended hours because whether they work in shifts, and so, we try to accommodate and we understand the needs of each community that we serve, and we're willing to understand or eliminate the need for 24 hours. But, unfortunately, it's, from our standpoint and from a customer standpoint, it will not work ending at 9, because what ends up happening as a customer, it usually takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to do a load of laundry. So if you shut it down at 9, that means they can't come in after 7. And that's, people are coming home from work or their shifts are, it's just, it wouldn't work not only from a customer standpoint, but from our viability standpoint. We couldn't make a go of it. So normally, the least hours we operate is 6 to midnight, again, with the last wash being 10:30. So people aren't coming in at 11 to do their laundry. The hours, the doors are, and it's always attended. There's somebody there, okay? So it's not like it's an unattended. These places are state-of-the-art, flat screen TVs, granite countertops, ceramic tile. We put a lot of money in these places. And with the staff always there, no one else is allowed in, let's say, after 10:30, and they have to be out of there, in our hope, by midnight. So it's a little bit misleading when it's saying 6 to 11. People aren't coming in at 10:45 to do their laundry.
And what can you tell me about the behavior of the patrons, meaning lounging around outside and creating
65 to 70% of your customer base are women. So,
in and out.
I'm sorry?
In and out.
In and out. They're sitting there. It's the beauty, why these stores tend to do well is the equipment. And I can go into and bore you with all the details, but suffice it to say that what you're doing is you're creating such a service for the community, because what normally takes 2 to 3 hours minimum to do a laundry in an apartment building, you're in and out in an hour and 15 minutes. A lot less money, a lot quicker, because the equipment works so well, dries their clothes, gets them in and out. So it's a great service, and it cuts down the time of doing the laundry. So to answer your question, they are in there, sitting there, watching TV or reading a book, but they're there about an hour to an hour and a half. And again, it's 60 to 70% women historically across all our stores.
And how about the parking concerns that Ms. Fleming addressed?
Yeah, the parking is great. We couldn't have done it without we want more we wanted the more parking. So 19 is plenty of parking for the size of the store. Again, we can build stores of 5,000 square feet. Given this size and 36 washers, 19 is plenty of parking.
Mr. Chairman, I have.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you for coming out. I just got a couple questions. So it seems like the community is most worried about the bad effects. What are the hours of the current 7-Eleven that's behind there? Is it 24 hours? So I would offer that any issues we're going to have there from the laundromat would be minor compared to the 7-Eleven that we're already dealing with. So I appreciate that we want to try to limit the intensity of things here, and I think the hours in the staff plan are fine for me. I do appreciate it will be that there's always an employee there.
That's right.
So if we have an employee there, then at least when there's some issue in the parking lot or something else, the employee will be able to address it. So it's not like it's one of these laundromats that you know, we've seen in other parts of town where they're unattended. They're basically just machines where you stick money in. I don't think you'd leave.
Also, these are all card-operated equipment.
Card
So
operated.
it's card-operated.
Tells you how
just
long it's
vending.
been since I've been.
Yeah, so the vagrants, you know, the old issues of vandalism, all that's been eliminated.
Okay.
Because there's the cash it's a cashless.
I appreciate this. So what I'm suggesting to the commission is that I think we can manage the ill effects. I don't think we're adding anything more to this area, considering that the 7-Eleven is already operating 24 hours a day. And now the one last issue that I'd like to see if staff has any ideas on is the parking across the street. What is the parking situation across the street? Is that open parking? Across 7th.
It's on street parking, isn't it? It's on street parking.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is if there's spillover, I'm trying to address the
Oh, you mean parking
Ms.
in
Fleming's-
Park Place?
No, I think
No, that's
I
all
thought,
private.
I was under the impression that your home, ma'am, was across 7th.
Yes, it's on 7.
So are those spots there, would we have spillover parking and impeding, or is there,
They're parking there right now. Where the lines are.
so is there a way to,
Right, I think this is supposed to be no parking where the lines are, correct?
She's saying they're parking there now.
We could enforce that.
so do we have a parking issue or do we have an enforcement issue?
Be no parking.
Sounds like an enforcement.
Just call police, parking.
Yeah.
Yes.
'Cause
So
I'm
that's a no
pretty sure
parking
that-
area?
They have no signs.
It's supposed to be a drive-through.
That's a one-way drive. There would be no parking in there.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So what I'm saying is the way to mitigate that would be then to intensify the enforcement and make sure that people are ticketed if they're.
Signage.
And signage.
Yeah.
So if staff is willing to do that, which I would assume.
Yeah. You can have the manager of the
So-
store would.
Just
Well,
The
I don't know if
additional
this is the
signage
manager's
is a
problem.
condition.
This
No,
is our
the
problem. This is on a public
residents. Yeah,
street.
this
That's
is-
enforcement.
You guys with me? I'm just trying to
Yes.
deal with that issue.
I'm sort of with you, but we need to look into it because
Yeah.
unless the mayor and city council deems no parking.
Well, that's my question. Is it currently no parking or is it?
If there's no signs there, I don't think the mayor and city council will waive it.
It's striped the way, I mean, all along there.
It's striped from the,
Street, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, so are we.
Okay.
it's striped, and I don't know if the stripes take the place of a
Right.
sign.
Right.
I think it's obvious
Mrs. Mills,
visually, they're telling you not to park there.
It's our intention that that's a no parking area, right? Is
Yes.
it the stripes mean?
Sounds right.
So however we have to address it, it's not like we have to go for an ordinance to make it no parking, right?
No, not on
It's already
private
intended to
property.
be no parking. So whether we sign it or stripe it or whatever, that's on us, not on the applicant, right?
Right.
So I think we can maybe address Ms. Fleming's
Question.
and if there is a public safety issue with turning into that street, that's an obvious one. So I'm of a mind that I think we can manage, again, like everything else in Laurel, we manage with the property. I'd much rather see a business go into this location than to have it continue to sit empty. It's better for the tax rolls, and I think this is an amenity that there's a population that people need. So, that's just my thoughts on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
if I could just sort of add my 2 cents.
Please.
Having had fairly recent experience when my washer at home went out to having to accompany my wife to a laundromat, the patrons that you see at a laundromat are usually families or single people.
Rick, you're on
I
TV.
ain't touching that.
He's on.
I won't either. I think some of the comments that have been made or concerns that have been raised about the kind of people, you'd see more, I think, the kind of people that have been described as loitering and that sort of thing, hanging around the 7-Eleven versus hanging around a laundromat. It just doesn't seem to lend itself to that kind of place where people want to congregate. And I think the same thing applies to, in my opinion, the traffic and parking. I can't imagine that even on a Saturday afternoon when a lot of folks do their laundry, that you'd have parking issues outside of the parking lot. So the designated number of spaces, I certainly think, and I think staff has agreed, would be adequate to handle the size of that building and the business that's there. One of my major concerns or questions has to do with the landscaping. It was mentioned that there'll be 2 trees and 4 shrubs. Can the site accommodate a little bit more? I mean, we just saw a presentation with the library that is walking distance from where this laundromat is. That's going to be flush with very lush landscaping. And I'm obviously not going to ask the applicant to consider, or ask the commission to consider to ask the applicant to do anything of that scale, but it just seems like 2 trees and 4 shrubs, laundromats seem to me to be fairly stark of any kind of outward attractiveness. The applicant has said that they put a lot of money on the interiors, and I think maybe the outside you could consider, Commission, to be a bit more attractive with some vegetation. That's my 2 cents.
Can that be discussed among staff and get that resolved? And put that into our recommendation?
It appears from the plan that you would be able to heavy up along the back property line with, to serve more as a buffer between the 7-Eleven and this.
Okay.
Are there,
Workable.
is the building being changed in any way? Are there going to be windows on that back side? Right now, it's only on the front side. And the reason I'm asking is the parking lot, or the parking spaces that are proposed for that rear of the building, the attendant would have no view of unless you're going to have a camera there. And for the residents, those are the parking spaces that are closer to their home. And I thought that was a very valid point about having children looking out. So I just wasn't sure whether you were putting windows on that side also, or if you could say that there would be a camera so that the attendant would be able to see that without going outside.
Right, we're going to, a couple things. We're adding a rear entrance.
Okay.
Glass entrance along with, and I don't know the exact term, but it's I think they call it a side light. So it's not only a glass storefront door, but there's a panel to the side of it to make it even wider.
Okay.
So that's number 1. And number 2, what I was planning on doing, there's 2 little alcoves, for lack of a better term, in the front of 7-Eleven each corner. We were going to put planters out there on the front.
Great.
Thirdly, we're replacing the roof. The roof is in my estimation, looks pretty unsightly.
Yeah.
So I told these guys to go ahead and replace the roof. So it's going to have a brand new roof because the building next to it has a brand new roof. So aesthetically, I think that's going to help the site as well as the parking lot. And then I'll be glad to talk to whoever about additional landscaping in the rear.
And my last question is, the staff report came back at 11. We heard you say midnight, and
Yeah.
we've also heard
Right.
9 o'clock up here. Could you live with 11 o'clock? I know it's,
Yeah.
He said, yeah.
That was like saying no when you mean yes.
Yeah, I heard you.
That's what I thought.
That's a tough one. Because as again, at midnight, we close patrons down at 10:30. So now at 11, you're closing them down at 9:30, and that's achieving that 9 o'clock cutoff, or close to. And to me, that's a tough one. But 11:30. It's splitting hairs, but
Thank you. Let me, if I could ask the staff.
And again, that's the reason why. It's
No,
to get people to finish up their laundry that are in there.
Right, right. And if I could ask staff, in terms of other businesses in the city, not excluding bars, do we have, normal timeframes that we operate? I mean, I know a laundromat's different, but
Laundromats aren't specifically included, but I think to answer your question, we have very specific criteria that gives the planning commission, sometimes the Board of Appeals, great levity for any place that sells a video store, a liquor store, and places like that, because we're always talking about the ability to be seen from the outside in to prevent anything. Now, this is an attendant kind of thing, but there are similar things, but laundromats are not included in the specific criteria.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Go ahead, please.
I just think we're back to, I mean, I appreciate that the hours, and I think, again, we're not dealing with adding, we've already got a 7-Eleven. So I'd rather see, well, just my personal opinion, that we give the business every chance it can to be successful.
Right.
And if that means moving it back to midnight, if that works,
Yeah.
I don't see how we're adding that much additional load to this particular parcel, this area, by that. Again, I don't know how many people could possibly be doing their laundry simultaneously, at that point in time. But, compared to the traffic going in and out of the 7-Eleven, I just think we're focusing on the wrong thing. I appreciate that we need to have enforcement. We need to have people with lots of eyes out. We need to make sure we deal with the parking and safety issues. And I, to Mr. Small's landscaping, if we can get it, I'm all for it. But as far as this hours thing, and I appreciate where staff was coming from, but again, I don't see how you can do this here when, 25 yards behind it, we got a 7-Eleven.
and I think we're on the same page. I think
we're
that's
all-
why I
we're all
asked, before
together.
we went for
So,
approval of
thank
the
you very
staff
much,
report, I
Mr.
wanted to
Chairman.
ask if.
We've heard from the people where the economic impact about the closing hours is significant. So let's run this to see what we got. If we got problems, we can address it then.
I'm ready for a
Ready for
motion.
motion?
Unless any.
Monique.
So are we proposing that the hours be to 6 to 12?
That's what I'm
Right.
getting ready to make
It's
a
your
motion.
motion, yeah. Yeah, but
Go
Do you want to make?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, no, you would not. Mr. Chairman, I would like to move adoption of amended site plan and landscape plan application 701 filed by Super Suds Management LLC, including action on resolution number 13-11 PC with the following changes. To include the staff report as is with the exception, well, with one exception.
Two exceptions.
Two exceptions, thank you. To number 6, hours of operation limited to 6 a.m. to midnight, 12 midnight, and add do I add a 7 to your report or just add a? Is that okay?
Say what you want to say.
And to add one more recommendation to have staff work with and consider additional landscape options with the applicant.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
Second. Ready for a vote?
Mrs. Bettman,
Yes.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mr. Walford,
Yes.
Mrs. Holland,
Yes.
Chairman Williford,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Mrs. Fleming?
Thank you.
You have a responsibility for the behavior of the parking. You call the police often enough, it'll get resolved. Just stay on it, and he has a responsibility to keep you happy. Everybody. Thank you. Yes. Yeah, she included the resolution, yes. Okay. You're welcome.
Good luck.
Good luck, yes. No, much success. Luck doesn't get it done.
It's been a long time since we've had a laundromat in Laurel.
I'm just thinking, since the We Wash.
No, there was one, there used to be one right behind the Texaco, right there on, which one? Gorman.
There one on Gorman?
There was one in the mall area too, where the mall's gonna be. Yeah, it's gone. Okay, action on Forest Conservation Plan application, West Side Development, Van Duzen Road, filed by Strittmeyer Land LLC and MCRT Investments LLC. Public hearing on application.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is an application, excuse me, for a forest conservation plan approval. This land was, excuse me, this plan was, this property was annexed into the city July of last year. The plat was recorded December of last year, and the zoning was approved January of this year. It's currently zoned MXT. The applicant is filed for this forest conservation plan, which is the initial step in development. They intend to put 484 maximum multifamily units, a maximum of 56 townhouses, and an extended stay hotel, and up to 200,000 square foot of commercial space on the northern side of the site. The total site is 58.76 acres. The forest conservation plan was prepared by a registered landscape engineer in the state of Maryland. They did complete the worksheet with the total reforestation or afforestation required 13.15 acres, and the plan as presented does provide for 13.15 acres as required by the worksheet. Recommendation is to approved as submitted.
Any questions? Okay. Mr. Gibbs.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman,
evening.
members of the Planning Commission.
I think I've
and,
seen you before.
Just a few times.
Get
Good
your
to be
bonus
back,
yet?
though. It's good to be back. No, not yet.
All right.
Not yet. I'm still searching.
Let me know when you don't.
I will. I will. Thank you so much. And, of course, Councilman Smalls, good to see you as well, sir. I'm here this evening and happy to be representing Strip Matter Land as well as Mill Creek Residential Trust. And, you know, we've been through the entire presentation relative to the project on prior evenings, so I'm not going to go through that again. This is just one element, and a technical element at that, relative to what we have to do in order to take the development process one step closer to fruition, and that is, of course, to have this plan approved. I would note that the development numbers shown in the staff report are those which are proposed. They're not the theoretical maximum. The theoretical maximum was approved on the conceptual site plan for 500, a maximum of 500 multifamily residential units, a maximum of 80 townhome units, a maximum of 200,000 square feet of commercial retail, and a hotel site with a maximum of 150 rooms. Those maximums will likely not be achieved, and indeed the 484 multifamily units are what is being proposed at this point, and what will be shown on the final site plan, which will come before you hopefully next month. But those are the correct numbers being proposed, but they're not the theoretical maximums. The only thing I would say about this is that, you know, a forest conservation plan is indeed a technical document. You have criteria in your ordinance that must be satisfied in order to achieve approval. We are within those tolerances. All of our afforestation is going to be on site. We're not proposing to go off site. And you know, I would just concur with the findings in the staff report, and ask for your favorable consideration. And you know, again, as every night, you know, all my clients are here as well, so they're here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Ready and armed with backup.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commission questions?
Mr. Chairman, I do have just one question I'd like to ask Mr. Gibbs or anyone with this group. As you're aware, I'm sure there have been residents of the neighboring community, Wilshire Estates, who have raised a group. I won't mention size, but who have raised some concerns regarding the buffer of trees between the project property and their homes. And I've understood that there's been some outreach, if I'm correct, to those residents to talk about the buffering, the forestation, so forth and so on. Can you just update us on if there's been any discussion?
I'll be happy to do so. First of all, Councilman Smalls, we have not had an individual meeting with any representatives of Wilshire Estates. We have sent notices at every step that we have been required to under your ordinance. And in fact, we actually at one point corresponded on several occasions with representatives of Councilman Lehman's office because, as you are aware, Wilshire Estates is not within the municipal boundaries of the city. And we also checked the Park and Planning Commission data relative to whether or not they were registered within the Park and Planning Commission data. Civic associations typically register with Park and Planning if they want to receive notification of applications filed in their area. They were not registered. We did not get a contact from anyone within Councilwoman Lehman's office, so we sent the notifications out to the adjoining property owners. At our hearings on the conceptual site plan, and most notably on the conceptual site plan for the State Highway parcel or the old Board of Ed parcel, there was a single representative of Wilshire Estates who appeared that evening. I believe it was a reverend who lives in Wilshire Estates, and he had a question about the buffer. I had an extra copy of the buffer diagram which we had filed, and I gave it to him and you know, indicated if he had any questions, please let me know. I have not heard from anyone. If you would like us to have some personal outreach, I mean, it's really difficult to do anything more than send the notices out when you don't have contact information. If you have contact information you'd like us to do that, we're more than happy to do so. I will say this, that the two things. Number one, the alignment for the road coming in is primarily dictated by where the State Highway Administration says that access point has to occur. And it must be at a point that lines up directly with the access driveway for Anderson's Corner, which is right across Van Dusen Road. Those two access driveways must align. That causes the road to come in at an sort of close to the edge, the eastern edge of the State Highway parcel. Now, the alignment somewhat dictates that, but we also supported that because it's a far better proposition than to have that road come in, try to bend it to the west, and then have actual retail commercial development on the east side of the roadway right up against the back of those homes. So what we did was to bring the road straight up and to proffer that we would construct a berm on the east side of the entrance road, West Side Boulevard, and that we would do a very intense planting on the top of the berm. And then even to the east of that, there would still be further buffer area because that's a conservation, a TCP area, a tree conservation area within Wilshire State subdivision as well. So for all those reasons, we think that's going to be a good situation. Now, the only other thing I'll say in conclusion is that you are going to approve the final site plans. And as part of that, you're going to look at that buffer treatment, and it's going to have to be satisfactory to you as well. So, you know, for all those reasons, I think we're headed in the right direction. But I can't say that we've had an individual one-on-one meeting, notwithstanding our efforts to the contrary.
Great, thank you.
Is that responsive to what you wanted?
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what to say to the Reverend?
Sir?
You have something to say to the Reverend?
I will very soon, yes.
Any other questions? Comments? You serious?
I reviewed it. I didn't have any questions.
Golly.
Did all the math?
Wow.
Did you do all the math?
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're ready for making a decision.
Which one, I'm confused.
We're up to, this is 11.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the Forest Conservation Plan application for the West Side Development of Van Dusen Road, filed by the Strip Matter Land LLC and MCRT Investments LLC, and to include the Resolution 1307-PC.
Second?
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bettman?
Yes.
Mr. Walford?
Yes.
Mrs. Holland?
Yes.
Chairman Williford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Record plat application, West Side Development, Van Dusen Road, filed by Strip.
Strip matter.
Huh?
Strip matter.
Didn't I say Strip Matter?
You did.
I got my tongue caught in my eye teeth. Couldn't see what I was saying.
It's all good.
Okay. Public hearing and application, final action by Planning Commission, and action on Resolution 1308 PC forthcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's finally me.
Oh.
I
You worth
wanted-
waiting for?
Huh?
Worth waiting for?
I doubt it. I just wanted to quickly explain and apologize that this was part of a trio of applications. The latter one, and we didn't have time to notify anyone at Wilshire Estates with a sign and stuff. But I do want to apologize. Mr. Matsuda is here from Conterra this evening. I did explain to him that the final site plan for parcel C, which I'll get into in just a second, had to be deferred because it has not been processed to the Community Appearance Standards Panel. So we're in the middle of that right now. Because the way the system works, the Community Appearance Panel, which you're familiar with, meets and makes recommendations to you, not in reverse. You are the final arbiter of that. So, but our recommendation has not been finished yet because we're still negotiating with the applicant. So just wanted to apologize. It was a much bigger trio, but I do intend very quickly, because I don't want to be redundant in what Jack said, is the record plat basically is the formalization of the dividing lines between the concept plan, but only for the original strip matter property. It does not include anything on the Board of Education property. So the parcels in front of you is parcel A, which is that portion of the concept plan for retail and restaurants. Parcel C, which is the subject of Mill Creek Residential Trust and the apartments, and parcel B, which is the hotel. Now I will share the staff report, with the exception of community appearance standards, was done, and I wanted to highlight, if I could, one of the recommendations, and they're hearing it for the first time, so if I get hit in the back, they'll understand. But what we did is a double-tiered approach is we looked at the berm on West Side Boulevard, which is not the subject of anything this evening, but we're going to recommend, when you see this in June, that you get a second crack at that buffer area in intensity. So when the plan is submitted for parcel A, which will probably be a more unified one that includes the Board of Education property next door, because it is to be a combined retail and restaurant complex, that you would be able to re-examine the berm and buffering, which would be in place likely by then, because Mill Creek will proceed with their apartment development, and that's predicated on a number of things, that the state finishes its consummated agreement and consents, and you've already approved the record plot for that, so that would have to be amended, because again, I think as I told you, the state is deeding the land to the city. It's not that strip matter won't actually, it'll be a public right of way, and any adjustments that need to be made. But having said that, we wanted to give you the second chance around to allay any fears. And I cannot stress to you, and Mr. Gibbs is correct, that we have made every attempt to, these people have been bombarded by mail. They are aware of it. The management agency is a name who most of you probably remember, Dave Vaughn, who used to work for our department. He's the managing agent, and he said that they don't have a full contractual association with them, so they're finding out. But I think I know, I think they understand somewhat. I know they were planning to be here this evening, so I don't think anybody in the audience is actually from there. But anyway, I just want to know that with the subdivision, it isn't just that. And it does reflect one thing that we did in negotiations with the applicant, and you don't see it here, but West Side Boulevard, there was a compromise with the City Department of Public Works. Originally, they had talked about continuing West Side Boulevard as a 4-lane boulevard flanking parcels A and parcel C. And the negotiations, we felt that it was unnecessary, just created basically an invitation to speed from the entrance point to the apartments to the hotel site. It was unnecessary. So they agreed to recommend a 54-foot paved section that would have room, number one, for that bans parking because it's unnecessary because it's to be contained. And number two, would look at signing it for a bike trail and also have any potential future transit stops along that route, I mean, if it ever came that way. So that's what you see, they'll be reflected in this. So with all that said, I mean, again, this is somewhat elementary. It's just basically carving out and formalizing the concept plan for the original strip matter property. As Mr. Gibbs said, this does not include anything on the Board of Education property. It does not include the townhouses, which are on the other property, and that portion of the retail property that's on the other property. But the only two things that are succinctly in parcel C are the multifamily apartments, which is C, and B, which is the hotel. Having said all that, and not trying to be even more redundant than I usually am, we're recommending your approval.
Did you get all that, Rick?
No. I do have a couple of questions. Mr. Brundle, you mentioned parcel D, but in the analysis, it doesn't mention parcel D.
What D is not a subject of this. This subdivision is only taking place on the original property.
Okay, so
before the
D's
strip
coming
matters.
later.
Right, the strip matters are basically in control of the school board property, but that doesn't have the same. Strip matter was annexed in the city as MXT and remained in MXT, so therefore it has no relationship to the 5-year rule. And I'm not saying that has anything, because this commission has the power to approve a final plan. The only caveat in law is nothing can physically happen on the ground for 5 years from the date of registration of the annexation. So for now, all they're doing is proceeding, creating the first two, basically, which is the hotel and the multifamily. Those seem to be leading the way in the mixed use.
Thank you.
At some point, is all of this property coming together? I thought a couple meetings ago, I know we were approving things separately, but that at some point that the property was all going to be coming together. So will this?
I believe that's the case, and it'll probably be sooner than later.
Okay.
But it'll happen. The thing that'll really be affected is parcel A will simply go to that border of West Side Boulevard at its west side, and the townhouse area, which is solely within the Board of Education property as West Side Boulevard turns in the corner, will also be subject of a final plan.
Okay. Thank you.
All righty. Questions? Comments? Inquiries? You guys have both been quiet today.
This stuff, I'm
Appreciate it.
good.
I'm ready for a recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the record plat application for West Side Development Van Dusen Road, and the staff report and the resolution number 13-08-PC.
I'm listening.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Green?
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Bettman?
Yes.
Mr. Welford?
Yes.
Mrs. Holland?
Yes.
Chairman Williford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
I think people that design this law
Thank you very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you. Keep up the good
Tim.
work. It'll come about. I do believe.
Most likely, second Tuesday in June.
Okay.
Maybe even more.
Always welcome. Now, before we talk about this text amendment, what brought this about?
Thank you.
Which one are we doing?
This is the text amendment number 229.
Thank you.
Because it,
You want to do it?
I'll answer you frankly.
I like it, frankly.
We have sometimes a bad habit of copying Prince George's County as if they are someone to emulate. The MXT zone was transferred, and through Mrs. Mills and I created a number of amendments to try and make it more workable. One of the biggest problems of this is in the presumption in the MXT zone in the county. It's more urban oriented because they give you density based on a number of factors, which are usually totally unrelated to most mixed-use development. The creation of a public arcade, public plazas and things like this, which were, if you were in downtown Hyattsville or downtown Silver Spring, I could totally understand. But it does not translate. So Mrs. Mills and I had talked about an amendment saying, or any other condition, that we wanted this. What this does is makes our MXT zone a lot more like our overlay zones, meaning that the city fathers and mothers have flexibility at the planning commission level and the city council level to negotiate directly and get what they want. And all this other verbiage is, to me, in my opinion, useless. So sorry for my frankness, but so this gets rid of it once and for all. When you negotiate density, there's no reason to have an optional method, because you can negotiate in an overlay and an MXT, theoretically, anything that you care to. There's no limits to do that. And I personally would always recommend against having a menu where if you met the criteria in the menu, you get it.
Get it by right.
And to me, that takes away your discretion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have no problem with changing this. I appreciate understanding why. And I think the overlays thing has just been a stroke of genius. I mean, you guys have all been able to use that with Mrs. Mills and the mayor and the council to get a lot of things that we wouldn't have got otherwise. So anything that gives us as a community the ability to negotiate and, again, do the right thing at the right point in time, I'm all for. So thank you.
Any other comments? Ready for a motion?
You chime in on Jack's analysis.
I'm good.
Well,
First rule, right, Jack? When you get it there, stop.
Yeah, well, you can't, we eschew obfuscation, right?
Correct.
He's already said it, right?
Correct.
Are we ready to make a decision? Yeah. Or do we want to hear Jack's? Go ahead, Jack. Don't put all that, you did all that homework and study, bringing midnight over.
You won't hurt my feelings.
Okay. I'm ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept text amendment number 229, ordinance number 1773, an ordinance to amend Chapter 20 Land Development Subdivision, Article 1 Zoning, Division 5 Zoning Districts, Section 20-12, MXT, Mixed-Use Transportation-Oriented Laurel City Code, providing an effective date for recommendation to the mayor and city council.
Have a motion.
Second.
I'll say it again. Have a motion.
Second.
Ready for a vote?
Mrs. Bettman?
Yes.
Mrs. Holland?
Yes.
Mr. Walford?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Chairman Williford?
Yes.
Motion carries.
One more.
What's the resolution?
Yeah. Same question you asked last time.
Question you asked before.
Who's up?
Do you want to announce it first?
Resolution number 1312 PC, implementing a policy of the Planning Commission not to hear zoning cases for property with outstanding city code violations.
And I'll be very succinct about this. This basically is the formalization, albeit verbally, very verbal. It continues a policy that the Planning Commission had under Mr. Turney many years ago. Again, this is using your power. Why should you sit there and deal with a zoning case where the person's not complied with the law? So this makes it clear to the Planning Commission, you will not hear a case, and when they get on your agenda, unless their action requesting corrects their zoning violation. Otherwise, you're not going to hear the case until they get their act together.
That makes sense, because there's a couple of times I felt like
Well, again,
we were doing some.
Of policy, and it's never been totally clear, so Mrs. Mills has suggested that it's time to put in a formal policy resolution. Eventually, it might find its place into a statute, but for now, I think it makes the position of the Planning Commission clear that why should you process applications when people are violating the law?
So who decides whether the thing in front of, who decides that they get the exception, which is they're here to argue about?
Well, sometimes it may not be you, sometimes it might be the Board of Appeals, but that's rarely the case where they're actually looking, their actions doing it. Usually they're guilty of something else. Like if you were doing something and there's a sign violation, they have illegal banners or stuff like that. It really helps in the compliance side of the equation, because it forces their action.
I mean, obviously, Mr. Manzi believes this is lawful.
He has reviewed it, yes.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, I think I understand. So it's outstanding city code violations. So they've violated something to do with something. It's not about someone bringing us, I'll go back to the funeral home example where somebody was bringing us a proposal to be exempted from certain codes and different things like that.
It doesn't change your power because, I mean, again, any decision you make or any decision that our planner makes is a decision by a commissioner or administrative official, and that's appealable to the Board of Appeals.
Okay.
It doesn't alter due process at all.
Thank you.
Very good. We're no longer judge and jury.
Well,
Just-
Beg the difference.
We're no longer judge and jury. We do investing. You get it right before it gets
Well,
here.
this stops that kind of stuff from happening.
So-
Then they know.
so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we approve resolution number 13-12-PC.
I'd like to hear a second to your recommendation, sir.
Second.
Yes.
Mr. Wilson, Mr. Walford,
Yes.
Mrs. Bettman.
Yes.
Mrs. Holland.
Yes.
Chairman Williford.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And you know, for the first time, you can take all of my stuff back. You can have it. Recycle.
The library.
I'll tell you how far some of the stuff I have goes back to some of the first drawings we got for the mall.
There's no way I mean, I started with my dining room, and it was like, I started going through it and said, okay, this is done, this is built, I don't need this anymore. I'm like, you know what, if I keep at least the agenda with my markup on it, I'm good. I don't think I need all this.